Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Vanessa Dunn, Guyton, and I am so excited to be with here for another episode. I am the proud founder and executive director of Hush No More. Hush No More supports survivors when they're ready to come forward, to receive resources, to share their story, or just to have somebody to listen. We also provide free training in our community to different churches, youth groups, different organizations, because we believe that awareness plus knowledge equals prevention. And so we have another episode of Hush No More Champions. And I am so excited because we have the amazing LaTasha Jackson-McDougle. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I am so excited that you're here. And so we wanted to do an introduction, to do something different today. So we're going to play a video to introduce Miss Jackson-McDougle.
Awesome.
Cheryl's Voice is a nonprofit organization. It actually started as a 5K team. When I was in college, I decided that I wanted to bring memory to the loss of my mom. And my mom's name was Cheryl. I did a full investigation by going to Fort Worth PD. In the process of that investigation, I discovered that my mom was in a very abusive relationship with my father, and ultimately he took her life in front of me and then killed himself. I also discovered that I witnessed a lot of the abuse. I suffered a lot of medical issues, and I decided, how can I use this pain that I'm feeling and be able to touch other children who are in similar situations? One of the places my mom got resources was at the Women's Center in Tarrant County. And I reached out to them and said, okay, you know what? I'm going to volunteer with them. And I started a 5K, me and about 5 other good friends. And we went and we did the 5K. And I said, okay, what more can I do? I started doing different things in the community. I started speaking. Other people have been asking me to share my story. And one day I just woke up and it was like God told me, Cheryl's Voice. And so I named the organization Cheryl's Voice. And at that time, it was not even really an organization. It was just a name to go attached to what I was doing. And eventually I was speaking at the University of Texas at Arlington, and a lady approached me and said, you need to be a nonprofit. I'm going to make that happen for you. And they made Cheryl's Voice a nonprofit. What we do with Cheryl's Voice is empower and encourage youth who have witnessed abuse and also, unfortunately, maybe even witnessed the murder-suicide or the murder of their parents. Also, we want to reach those families who are in situations who feel like they're staying in the relationship because of their children, or they don't feel like their children are going to be affected. We get them information, let them know that their children are affected and how they can help them before it gets too late, before they repeat that cycle. Cheryl's Voice is very big on breaking that cycle and connecting those families and those children with resources that are right here in Tarrant County. It's very important that they know that there are help and resources out there for them. That's what I do. I provide workshops of awareness and encouragement. I provide speaking engagements anywhere, whether it's sharing my story or it's giving a one-on-one on what domestic violence and teen dating violence is. It's very important to the community to be able to give that speaking engagement, provide those things to them. Growing up, I struggled a lot. On the outside, most people saw me and I was always happy and I got stressed, and I was in the plays and in the doing talent shows and just all these great things. I was in student council, and all really I was doing is covering the pain that I was in. And I'll never forget, Terry Crews did a speaking engagement and he talked about success is a warm place to hide. And that's exactly what I did with much of my life, is hide in that success. Even when I got to college, I really didn't even talk about the loss of my mom. I didn't talk about the struggles that I was having and the fear that I had every time a guy wanted to talk to me or be in a dating relationship. I was always paranoid that something would happen to me One, I want you to understand there are healthy boundaries in a relationship. It's okay to acknowledge the pain. It's okay to acknowledge that there's something different about you. And now let's get to work. Let's start talking about trauma counseling. Let's start talking about the issues. Stop running away from the issue, because the reality is I learned the hard way that when you run from it, it's still going to be right there when you turn around. So I had to take a moment and dig myself out of the hole that I dug myself in. And so for me, with Cheryl's Voice, I want other youth, I want the families to be able to help them work on those things and know what resources out there. I want people to know what's available to them and use those resources because it's important. Unfortunately, due to the sins of my father, I suffered from several surgeries. I've had too many surgeries to even begin to count. From the day I was born, I had immediate surgery from the strain and the stress that my mother was under. By the time I was 6 months, my father, he hit my mother and caused her to drop me, and it broke my hip. Well, that hip injury caused a trickle effect of other injuries, brittle bones, not developing well, that childhood trauma. I have a permanent disability in my right arm. I was actually sitting on a bike when I was 12 and I fell, and it immediately broke my arm. And because I have issues with my bones, it did not heal properly, and I've had multiple surgeries. But most people don't even know that I can't straighten or bend my right arm. My last surgery, the doctor, he wasn't even sure I was going to be able to write because I'm right-handed, but I was determined to overcome that. I write with my right hand. I still do pretty much the things I want to do. The trauma, especially being in the vehicle when my father committed this horrible thing, I have a nerve issue in my brain, and unfortunately, there's nothing they really can do. I have random numbness and tingling on the right side of my face at times. The children, when they grow up to be adults, they don't really get it. They don't understand it. They start repeating those cycles and trying to dig their way out and not sure how. And that is why I'm very passionate about sharing my story and very passionate about providing those resources and saying, hey, you can do this. I feel like if I don't do this, I'm letting my mom down. She fought really hard to save me. And I don't want these kids and adults that are probably still struggling with childhood stuff they haven't even dealt with. I want them to break those chains. I want them to break free from that. One of the things I'm very passionate about is talking with young girls and boys saying, hey, this is supposed to be your life. This is normal. If you are feeling abnormal with your body, you have to let your family know. You have to seek medical attention. Don't ignore the signs, especially if you've had childhood trauma, because you can have some effects in your body that will affect you as an adult. I started this journey with Cheryl's Voice, sharing my story. I would give out resources to the Women's Center, One Safe Place, Safe Haven. I partner with Community Frontline, which are an amazing group of guys who does some amazing things in the community. I speak with this organization called The Net. I feel that if an organization is not collaborating with the other organizations around them and providing that those things and encouragement to each other and lifting each other up and saying we're in this for the victims, we're in this for our population, then they're in it for the wrong reasons. And Cheryl's Voice, one, is my mom's name, and I want to make her proud, and I want to hold honor to her. And in doing that, I'm going to be respectful of all of the other colleagues, organizations that are around. I'm going to uplift them. I'm going to do whatever I can to help them be able to continue helping the population that's needed. And I just think that's very important. I think a lot of people get lost in the competition. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about the community, and it should be about the survivors, the victims. My name is LaTasha Jackson-McDougle, founder and executive director of Cheryl's Voice. Cheryl's Voice is a nonprofit organization providing domestic violence awareness and teen dating violence awareness workshops and education. We want to encourage the youth and adults that you are not alone. There are tons of resources out here in Tarrant County, and we can get you connected with them. I want to encourage you to turn your trauma into your victory, and I encourage you to do that.
That was a great video. I am so glad that I didn't get to see it beforehand. I love, love, love the video. So tonight we are going to be talking about the red flags of dating teen violence. So welcome, LaTasha. I'm so honored that
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
So you said that you created the organization because of your mom and all of the abuse that she went through. Like, I just really give honor to your mom and knowing that her voice is being heard now. I'm real big on Hush No More. And so,
Mhm.
although she didn't always speak up during that time, she's speaking up through you. And I'm so honored and just excited that we can have you here with us today to give voice to Cheryl. And so, thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, and my mom was a teen herself. I mean, she was 15 when she got pregnant, got married, and she was killed by 17. So you're talking about someone who really young, fell in love really fast, and just did not know the struggles that she was in. All the way up until she was killed, she really thought that, oh, he's just angry. Oh, it'll get better. A lot of the comments that she made in these police reports that I got was just not aware of the real danger, and so that's really what drives me to educate and talk to teenagers because I see so many young people who are in these unhealthy relationships and just not sure how they got into it, why they got into it, and even how to fix it, and what is like you said, red flags. So let's start with some of the obvious ones that happen with a lot of our teenagers who nowadays is a lot of the social media bullying. The person is checking their social media. They're taking their phone, checking their phone. If somebody likes their picture, they're asking, who is this person? Who is that person? Why is this person liking that? Red flags all over the place. That is somebody that has a huge problem. It backdoors the old school words of jealousy and possessiveness. It's just on a whole nother level when you attach that with social media. And so a lot of parents need to be talking with their kids about, it's okay to have privacy. The person is not supposed to be going through your phone, asking who you're talking to, asking, only person supposed to be asking that is mom and dad. Who are you talking to? Where are you going? All these questions. That's parents' questions. That's not a relationships questions. And I'm not gonna. I mean, a lot of times, most of the victims are girls. But I will be honest. Lately, when I've been talking to a lot of youth, there are a lot of boys who are victims of in teen dating violence situations, and they're definitely are not aware because nobody's really talking about that. And they're, coming into my groups and they're saying, "Oh yeah, Miss, she took my phone and broke it." And I'm like, "Whoa, she did what?" Or she got mad at this because this girl said this and this to me. Same thing. It's equal opportunity. Okay, boys and girls both. Moms, be talking to your boys about what's healthy and not healthy. A girl should not be asking them who they're talking to, and accusing them of stuff, and asking them who they hanging out with, going through their phone, going through their social media, hacking each other's social medias. All that stuff is considered red flags. Red flags. Another one is
I did
going
want
to.
to come. I
Oh, go
wanted to
ahead.
comment on that. Passwords are passwords for a particular reason. And I know
Right.
tonight that some teens are going to be watching us, so I really do want to talk to them and for parents to share this with their children because it's important. But I've heard kids say, and I don't want to say kids, I want to say teens say, well, because they really love me. They care. They're jealous, right? They
Mhm.
just a little jealous because, I'm so special to them and they love me. How do you respond to that? Because I hear it all the time and they justify that behavior.
So a lot of that has to do with unresolved childhood trauma. And so parents, if your child is saying that they think that is love, you need to do a self-reflection because something happened, transpired for someone to feel that that is love. And that doesn't mean that it's too late. That means that you need to get into action. Counseling, counseling, counseling is essential. Dealing with the unresolved stuff, especially in the Black community, we have to stop putting a stigma on counseling. I love counseling. I always tell people, you have to start dealing with your stuff because if you don't, you're going to be an adult and you're dealing with crap. And I do a whole separate workshop on adults trying to date, and I have one coming up with Bumble, talking about safeties of dating. And a lot of times you have a lot of hurt grown people out here who miss that, dealing with the childhood trauma, and now they're grown and they're trying to get in these dating relationships, and you're like, what's going on with this person? So parents, if your child is thinking that this person is doing all these negative things that are really, really bad, and they feel like that's love, that's a sign that they really need to be into therapy and really understand what love looks like. And whatever is going on in that home, or it may not be currently in the home, you may be in a great healthy relationship, but maybe their father was abusive while you were pregnant. A lot of people feel like because the child is really young, they're not affected. And I'm here to tell you that the moment you conceive a child, everything you do in between impacts that child. I repeat that. The moment that you conceive a child, everything that you do impacts that child. And so if you have not addressed anything that was negative in their lives, they're prone to repeat those things as an adult or as a teenager. And so you'll start seeing those things in actions and behaviors. And so that's really what I tell people, is that you can't ignore it. If they feel like that's love, it's not. That's why we're calling them red flags. So they have to be able to identify what love is. And when we talk about teenagers, do they really even know what love is anyway? But they should definitely know that it's not unhealthy.
Yeah, what is not love? And if they don't have a really good example of what love
Right.
is, what a healthy relationship is, they will think that maybe that is how it's supposed to be, or
Exactly.
go a different route. So thank you for that. Okay,
Exactly.
so that's a major red flag. Our social media, right? Our social media, cell phones, the texting.
Right.
Yeah, major.
Those that's one of the major ones. Another red flag is someone, and actually I want to touch on this one. I usually have it at the end, but it really needs to go to the front lately. If someone is saying that they are going to, I can't live without you, I will die without you, I'm going to kill myself if we break up, those are things that not only are red flags, but that's something that your child needs to be telling you, or school, or wherever they are as some adult, immediately, because that person who's making those comments needs help immediately. A lot of our mass shootings are from someone who's made those kinds of comments. A lot of our teen and adult homicides are from someone who made those comments. My father made those comments, and in police reports that I've read, he's was kind of practically holding up a sign like, I'm gonna die without her. If I can't have my wife, I can't live without. And he was, I'm gonna die. I mean, he just kept going on and on. And we are talking back in the 80s. People thought, oh, he's just talking, he's just upset. No one thought it would go to the direction it went. And so we have to take those serious. Please do not take that for granted or lightly. Even if the person, sometimes the person could just be saying that for attention or playing, but you want to be on the safe side. You want to report that, and you want to take action. That is something huge and big. You do not want to be in a relationship or even around someone who is making threats against themselves or anyone else in that matter. So another thing that I also do is work for criminal courts, the domestic violence diversion program. So I work with the abuser who first time being arrested, and now we're trying to be proactive and preventative for them to get the help they need so they do not reoffend. And I actually have a young person on my caseload who was initially arrested for terroristic threats. He told his girlfriend that he was going to kill her grandmother, and her mother. Like he was going to wipe out the whole family. And thankfully, she told a friend, and the friend called and said something is not right, because he had a whole plan on how he was going to do this. And so you have to be cognizant of that. If it's one of your friends, if you hear someone saying something like that, you want to tell someone. You cannot ignore that. You cannot be quiet. Forget the whole snitches, get stitches stuff. This is something real. This is people's lives. It could also impact you and affect you. So please be aware of that. That is another big red flag that you want to look at.
So who should they report to?
So it depends on where they are. So if you're at school, a trusted counselor, principal, if that happens. If you're at home and somebody texts or something like that, you need to go straight to your mom, dad, caregiver, whoever is taking care of you. Those are the people that you need to report to. Some adult. If you're in a place to where there's no adult around, then you need to use your phone and dial 911 and make a report. And the police will come. Doesn't mean the person's going to go to jail and all this other stuff immediately. It just means that they're going to look into that, and if that person needs help, they're going to get the help they need. So you can't ignore it.
Right. Sometimes they're scared to call 911 and the police. But I
True.
tell parents that to talk to your kids about that calling the police is not always a bad thing.
Right. It's not an immediate death sentence as
Right.
some people push. And that's one of the areas that, we have to work on in our community about trusting police. That's a whole nother issue. I mean, because victims have issues with the police as well. Victims can call the police. And sometimes if the police is not really educated on domestic violence, and especially if the guy is well known or maybe a celebrity or something, they may side with the abuser. So that's a whole nother
whole nother topic, right? But I do want to reinforce that calling the police is not always a bad thing. Right? They are there to help you, right?
Right.
That's important.
Right. Absolutely. Another teen dating violence red flag would be some obvious things. So if you are a parent or an educator or someone that interacts with children and you notice a huge change, maybe in the person's attitude, maybe they're dressing totally different. Let's say, she always likes to wear dresses and she's very girly, and all of a sudden she comes in very like jeans and a baggy shirt and very totally different than what she usually dresses like. Pull her to the side and kind of see how they like what's going on. It could just be a fashion change, or it could be not. It could be boyfriend telling her, I don't want you wearing that dress anymore because I don't want anybody looking at you. And if that's the case, and she says, which usually they will, they'll say, well, yeah, he doesn't like me wearing dresses. Red flag. Pull that person to the side. And I know for me, I work with a lot of youth, and I'll tell them in a minute, drop that person. Like something's going on with them. They, it's not your job to try to save them or help them. They need to get the help on their own, but you do not need to be attached to something, especially at a young age, that is telling you what to wear and how to dress and how to look. That's not okay. Another one that a lot of our teenagers are, talking about is the conversation. So if the kid gets home and they're getting ready to have dinner with their family and they say, okay, I'll call you back later. And by the time they sit down, their phone, is in the room or whatever. That person has been called them 99,000 times. Literally text and all this stuff. And it's like, I just told you I was with my family. Or you're hanging out with your friends and they're calling you. They want you to, you need to show me proof that you're with this person. All of that. I mean, nobody should be doing that but your parent, really. I mean, let's just be real. Nobody that you're dating should be saying, show me proof you're with who you say you're with. If they can't trust you, which, a lack of trust, that's a red flag. That has nothing to do with you personally. That's something to do with them, and they need to work on whatever it is. But back to that, again, you cannot fix that. You cannot change a person. You cannot make them be secure within themselves and to gain trust and all that. They have to gain that on their own. So if they're doing those types of things, blowing your phone up after you just said that you were with mom and dad or you were with whoever, and they're just kind of constantly calling you and show up where you are and those types of things, red flag.
What I've noticed is they will call using FaceTime or Messenger. Right? That's how they'll call you so they can automatically see where you are. Somebody shouldn't always call you on video because it's like a way they're just checking up on you. And so I'm saying you do not have to respond via video.
I do have to consider that's how young people, I mean, nowadays, 2021, I won't necessarily say FaceTiming or video chatting is a red flag. I won't say that because a lot of young people, that's kind of like the thing now. Texting all the time. Like there's a quiz I give when I do workshops with youth called Healthy Relationship, Healthy Boundaries. And one of the questions is about, does a person call and text you all the time? And so I kind of take that with a grain of salt because that's kind of what they do now. It's like, they're texting. So I add the component of, does it make you uncomfortable? And so if you are uncomfortable with it, or you deny the video, like the face, because I'm about to be 38 years old. I don't like doing that video chat all the time. I might not feel like it.
I
And
don't.
so people know not to just quickly video chat me, because you'll get denied. And so if you do that, you deny the person, they get upset, and there's where you get your red flag.
Got it, got it. Because my hair might not be done. I might not be trying to talk to you right now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
but I
I'm
get
just
it. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
So
Love that. If
yeah,
it
so
makes you feel uncomfortable, that's a
mhm.
red flag. Or if they get mad that you deny the video, that's a red flag. Love that.
Right, right. And then lastly, another big one for youth is someone that puts you down. We used to always say, well, treat the girls you're with like you do your mom and your sister. Well, nowadays, they could be disrespectful to their mom and their sister. So that might not be something you want to go by anymore. So basically, you want the person to treat you with respect. If they're telling you something that's in a very mean spirited way, you're not feeling good about what they said. And that's with anybody, and that's just not relationship. That's any type of friendship. If somebody is bringing you down and making your spirits low and bad, that's not a healthy situation in a relationship as a whole. And I say that because a lot of these young people have friends that are in their circle that are not healthy, and then they end up in these unhealthy relationships. And of course, the unhealthy friend is not going to tell them, oh, that's not good, he shouldn't do that. They're going to try to keep pushing them off the cliff, basically. So you want your circle of people in your life to be positive. You should feel good around them. They should not be pulling you down, making negative comments to you and about you. And so those things are important. And so parents, if you notice a difference in your child's behavior, and then have that open door conversation. I was raised with my grandparents because I was orphaned, and my grandmother was like my best friend. Like I could tell her anything that was going on, and when I say best friend, there was still respect there. Like, I knew she didn't play no games, but if when something was going on, or if somebody said something, or I wasn't sure about something, I could go to her and say, Granny, what do you think about this? And I did that all the way up until she passed a couple of years ago. I mean, she was my go-to person about life circumstances, or something that I wasn't sure about. And so, parents, you want your child to feel the same way, to be able to come to you with stuff that they're not sure about, and you give them an honest answer. Don't let them be afraid to come to you about stuff, because honestly, my mom kept what she was going through away from my grandparents, because back then I can understand it, because my grandparents probably would have just went all the way bananas, probably in jail. And so I get it. So you got to find a balance, is what I want to say, is that you got to find a balance. So your child can come to you about things that's going on, and know that you're not going to go all the way left, but still address it, and still they can still feel comfortable with you addressing with them.
I love that. I was looking at some stats that said 81% of parents believe that their children would never be a victim of teen dating violence.
And they are super shocked when they find. I mean, I get this past year alone, I've had so many requests from universities, like, we have a huge problem, and their parents have no idea that their child is on campus being abused. And that's because they're adults at that point. And so, and they don't have to tell their parents, because they have campus people that are helping them, counselors and stuff that they're going to and confiding in. And so these parents are in the dark, not knowing what is going on. And there are tons of boys and girls that are in these unhealthy situations, whether that person is another student or a grown up that then got on campus and started dating this person and being abusive. It is going on, guys. So have that conversation. If especially if that your child didn't really see a lot of healthy situations, healthy relationships, do family therapy. Both of you heal and grow from that, so you can be able to break that cycle.
Yeah, family therapy is important, because you can't act like it never happened. They saw
Mhm.
it, they heard it. And so you have to address that. You can't be like, oh, everything is okay the next day. You have to address it, and through counseling, and not let the children think that this is a healthy way, that you're in survival mode, and I
Right.
don't like that. So I agree that counseling is so important. And a lot of times I'll tell parents, don't tell your kids that you will kill the person that harms them, that you're going to do something so dangerous and vindictive, because then they won't come and talk to you.
Right.
You have to have that conversation. You can't do the fear tactic. And if you've been doing the fear tactic, come back and try to correct that behavior and talk to them about, you heard some training, you heard somebody speaking, and you realize that you've told them wrong and that you wouldn't harm somebody that harmed them, because then they won't tell you it as well.
Right. Right. And I mean, you don't know. I mean, for example, when I share my story, I always tell people like I couldn't date till I was 16, and I didn't understand why. I'm like, why can I date till I was 16? So I had my first date at 16. His name was Jason. He was fine. And so me and Jason go to the mall. Out here it was called Gila Mall. That was a thing to do back in the day. And we go to the mall, and Jason's in the store, and I'm looking at jewelry. Well, this other guy, I think he was a classmate. He told me he went to my school. He approached me and was like, "Oh, you got a boyfriend?" I said, "Oh yeah, I do. He's over there." That was it. That was it. Jason comes over to me and upset. Like, why is he looking at you? And immediately, and at this time I'm 16, I really didn't. I mean, I knew my mom was in heaven. I didn't know much about domestic violence. I didn't really talk about any of that. But I really think, looking back, I think it was kind of like my mom angel saying, "This is not a red flag or something." Because I didn't even know what domestic violence was, but it's something in me snapped and was like, "This is not good." And so I looked at him and I kind of tried to laugh it off. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he says, "No, we're finna go right now. I can't believe you let him look at you." And I said, "Jason, what is going on?" He said, "You know what? F you," and left. Dude left me at the mall. Okay. So I called my granddad. I said, "Paul, this boy," I said, "Jason left me at the mall. He got upset because somebody was looking at me." And I cannot imagine, and this was way before I even knew how my mom, like, I didn't know anything at this point at 16. So looking back at it, I'm like, man, I bet my grandparents flipped the lid. Like, this girl's first date, and she's already got someone. And I really think, and that's when I tell people, I'm like, childhood trauma, it's like a cycle. And that's the enemy cycle, really, because I'm 16 and the first person I go out on a date with is, toxic. And dude left me at the mall. I called Paul. I said, "Paul, come get me." He left me. So my granddad is, 2.2 seconds to come pick me up. Jason Dunn behind decides to show back up and try to force me in the car with him. And my granddad beat him up.
Your granddaddy beat him up.
My granddad beat him up and he took off, right? Okay, so fast forward to me being almost 9. I think I was 19 at the time. I'm working at the sheriff department, working in the corrections. I was a jailer. Guess who comes through the back door? Oh, Jason, arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on his girlfriend at the time. He had been arrested multiple times for domestic violence. So I think I definitely dodged a situation with Jason. But I share that to say that, it's so easy to get into something toxic without even trying to. But luckily I had that support of my grandparents. I knew I could call him and say, "Hey, come and pick me up."
Right.
And I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know what wasn't right. I knew something was right. I just didn't know what was right until I got older and started putting the pieces together. I'm like, oh, that don't make sense. Like, why would I can't control somebody looking at me.
So Jason didn't learn from the beatdown.
No.
You should have learned. You should have learned.
But he did learn that I wasn't the one.
You wasn't the one, right? What he did. That's hilarious. I love that. I love it. Did your grandparents talk to you after that incident? Do you remember?
Yeah, my granddad he's always, and my grandmother both. I mean, my grandmother's always been telling me, that, how I should be treated and how beautiful I am and all these things. But my granddad definitely had, pulled me aside, like, "LaTasha, a man should never put their hands on you," and kind of gave me this whole rundown of how I should be treated. And my grandmother followed that up with a more biblical sense. She was very, here's the Bible. The Bible says what God says love is and how women should be treated and those types of things. So I had both sides telling me that what Jason did was not okay. Not only that, but I deserve better than that. I deserve someone that's going to be there and be caring and compassionate. And I was able to see that with my grandparents. I was able to see what healthy relationship looked like. And so I'm able to kind of know, okay, that's okay and that's not okay type of thing.
Yeah, I like that. You always want somebody to pour into you and pour into our kids. Like I didn't do this, but I thought it was a great idea where mothers date their sons and fathers date their daughters. I wish I would have done that when my kids were growing up, but that is a really good thing to do to show them what relationships should look like, how to be treated, what love is, and
Right.
chivalry. Because I don't believe that
Right.
chivalry is dead. It's that
Right. I mean,
you don't
yeah.
always
And
get
my
it right.
granddad, my first jewelry, I've always had, nice jewelry and purses. All my first name brand purse, all that stuff came from my granddad. Like, and he did that because he didn't want me to be easily swayed by items, like most of the time teenagers are. And so, and I remember, sometimes there be grown men. I'm 16, 17 years old, and these grown men, which that's a whole nother topic of, protecting your girls. These grown men are trying to, oh, you look good. I bet you look good with this diamond bracelet. My papa just bought me a diamond bracelet. Like, and it was like that didn't phase me. Like you can come to me with, jewelry or clothes or purses and all that. I already had this. My granddad got me that stuff. And then I had two granddads in my life who, both would, I had two pagers and two this and two that. So they both poured into me. So a man couldn't come, a boy couldn't come and throw that foolishness at me. I'm like, no, I need your respect. How do you talk to me? How you gonna treat me? All that other stuff is a bonus.
So, LaTasha, you actually was a little spoiled. You had two pages. Look, I'm gonna be a little envious right now, girl.
Well,
I never get a pager.
Listen, the only reason why I was not spoiled, it was more so that my other granddad was trying to make up for lost time. And that really what it was, because he wasn't around a whole lot. And then it wasn't until I got a little older he showed up and and I had kept telling him, like, I don't need you to give me stuff. I need you to be here, and
Right.
so but he kind of wanted to do both things. So, and that's a parent, I guess a parenting thing. I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but I feel like that's what he kind of felt like he should have done because he wasn't there as much.
To buy you, yeah. I'm just messing with you.
Oh,
I
well, I don't trust me. I'm not
pager
going to
days,
deny and say I'm not.
those
Sometimes
pager
I'm
days.
not, but
I
I'm not a
wish.
spoiled brat though. I know I am spoiled, but I'm very giving, and I don't let this stuff. I mean, that stuff bothers me. And that's what my grandmother kind of made sure, like, you don't look down on people. You don't let things, materialistic stuff is materialistic stuff, and that's really how I've always looked at it.
I love it. I love it. We have some comments for you. Enrico said
Oh.
that when I was 16, I was in a relationship with my ex, would say they would kill themselves if I left. I'm 22
Mhm.
now and they're still alive.
Mhm.
Listen,
And you know why, Enrico? Because it's just it's issues. And God bless them. I hope they got the help that they need. They probably did not. But I'm glad you're safe because it's a lot of guys that are. I mean, if y'all just watch the news, and a lot of times they only show snippets of when a man is killed by a woman. But if you Google that stuff or look it up in your community, you'll be surprised how many men are killed by their intimate partner.
yep. That's Enriqua. It's a girl.
Oh,
But
it's a
you're
girl. I thought
right.
you said Enrica. I'm sorry. I thought it was a guy.
Hey,
I was talking about.
sometimes I sound like I'm really from South Carolina. That's what it is. But you're right,
Because
though,
I
because men do die from intimate partner violence. It does happen, and we don't always talk about it. But she also said it was a common manipulative tactic that I didn't know
yeah,
at the
it
age.
is. That's narcissism behavior. That's a whole nother. I usually do like about an hour to 2 hours on narcissism. Yeah.
Mhm. Just to let them know. And Deborah said it needs to be healthy boundaries with a camera on. So even if we do agree to have a camera on, we should have some healthy boundaries going on. So I agree because remember we were talking about cameras when they FaceTime you or message you?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, cameras.
yeah. When they're
Yes.
FaceTiming and messaging, they should have
Yes,
healthy boundaries.
yes, yes, yes.
And
Like I
really,
said, nowadays almost everybody is doing the whole FaceTime and video chatting and stuff like that. It's long, like I said, if you feel comfortable with it, if you're healthy with it, y'all both are on the same page about it. There's boundaries. It's the difference is when it becomes a red flag when it's forced. If someone's telling you this is what's going to happen, or they get upset because you did not FaceTime them, then that's when you have a problem.
okay. And Lily said you're very informative. She is Lily.
Oh,
I
thank you.
love it. So one thing I did want to talk about was how teen dating violence leads to depression and suicide. Can you speak on that, like after the fact, some of the things that you've seen our teens
Well,
experience?
I can speak on that personally. And like I said, my grandmother just passed away a couple years ago, and I was going through her stuff, and I was going through her Bible, and she actually had a suicide letter I wrote, and I usually share it when I do my speaking engagements. And man, I forgot all about it. And she put it in her Bible. And thank God I had a praying grandmother because I forgot all about it. And once I read it, it brought back a flood of memories of me smiling on the outside. I was the kid. People really wouldn't have known that I was struggling unless they read a letter or something that I wrote because I would come home crying and I would write crying out to God, asking him, to let me die. I wanted to be in heaven with my mom. And so every day there was a constant feeling. And so it is very common that children who witness abuse or in the household where there's been abuse going on or witness the murder suicide, they're going to have struggles, whether it's suicide or homicidal thoughts. A lot of kids, if we see these things like, how did that kid kill their family and stuff like that? And then you start digging into the household, and you're like, whoa, they kind of been through some stuff. So that's why we talk about unresolved childhood trauma. That's why we talk about being proactive and getting your kids in the childhood in child therapy. In doing therapy, we have to take away the stigma of that. And so, thank God, like I said, I had a praying grandmother, and it's kind of those thoughts started going away. And then once it wasn't until I got grown, so I really started doing some real counseling. But I would just continue praying about it and crying out about it. And by the grace of God, I did not. I never had an attempt on my life. I just always had thoughts that my thoughts were more like asking God, like, why don't let me wake up. Like I just didn't want to wake up. Basically, it wasn't like I didn't have a plan, which some youth do. A lot of them do. They have these full blown out plans. So I never had a plan, but I just didn't want to live.
Right. And I think it's important for parents to understand that suicide, depression, all of
Mhm.
that really does occur in our teens. And you think that it's not happening to yours. And sometimes they hide it like you did, LaTasha. I could tell you that your grandma was praying for you, honey. If that letter was in that Bible, she was praying for you. But
Yep.
it really
And
has.
I scanned the letter and I use it in my presentations now. It was a letter and it was a drawing. I did a drawing of me and I was crying and it was like kids making fun of me because you imagine one, you don't have your mom and dad. You're living with grandparents and people are making fun of you about that, saying, oh, you don't even have your mom and dad, nah, 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 making comments. They're already picking on you anyway. And so you have to deal with all of that on top of childhood trauma. That is enough to make anybody want to just lose it at some point. And so I had a drawing that I drew of me crying and like everything was sad around me and people were laughing at me. And she had that in her Bible too. So I'm glad it was there.
There. Yeah, we have to address that, what's going on mentally with our children. And so
Mhm.
I really want parents to take that to heart. You might not know it, you might not always see the signs, but if you really pay attention to them, you can and have that intimate time with them or identify somebody that they could talk to. My
Mhm.
last major question for you is, how do you discuss consent with teens?
Okay, so that is a big one. So I have like a video I actually show them that goes into real detail of consent. But in short, I will say that especially for young parents with boys, Please talk to them about not putting themselves in situations. If you're at a party and there's drinking and you're not supposed to be drinking, or even if you're of age to drink going on, forget about the whole hooking up thing, because people have been drinking. I mean, you just have to be careful in these situations, because you can not, think you're getting consent, and it's not okay, because that person is, if they're too drunk to be able to give that real consent. So I always say, when you're young, just don't do it. Don't even put yourself in the situation, especially with young boys. Girls are the same way. I mean, it's very rare that girls force a boy into something, but it could happen. I'm not saying it can't. But with consent, you just want to be careful. If there's a party, like I said, and there's drinking and stuff like that involved, you really can't give consent to someone. Um, you can't give consent if you're under the influence and you're not in your right mind. And it also goes to for a grown up. So if you are, I know in Texas, if you are 17, 18 years old, you can't date somebody that's 16, 15, because if parents don't agree, they could definitely file charges against you. And that's a whole nother, issue. And it's sad, because I hate to see an 18 or 17-year-old and they're dating a 15-year-old, and that's only like a 2-year difference. But if they end up being sexually intimate and they feel like they got consent, and the parents get upset and found out that they're having sex, they could definitely be charged with being a sex offender. And so you got to have those conversations about age. You got to have those conversations about safety, and really being in communication. That's something that parents are going to have to do. And if anyone is interested in that video, I need to find it, because it's been a minute since I've had to show that of consent. But it's a really good example of what consent is, and really goes into detail and very helpful.
Okay. And when you find it, we'll share it on the Hush No More page, because
Great.
I think that's important for them to see. But consent to me is something that you definitely have to talk to your teens about, and
Mhm.
permission, what are boundaries about their bodies, and that they have a right to say yes or no. When we look at teen dating violence, a lot of times, like they say 50% rape and sexual assault occur in teen dating violence. That's a high number when teens
Right.
are forced to have sex, or they're like in that moment, not realizing like what they're really getting themselves in. You have to have that conversation, that they have a right to say no, and that they have a voice. And so
Right.
please talk about consent, because if they don't understand that, they don't understand the power of consent and their
Mhm.
right to walk away, you
Right.
gotta have a conversation.
Right. And we definitely still have a conversation about people that are married, because there is such a thing as marital rape.
Right.
If the person says no, no is no, period. And that's something that's consistent with across the board. Even if it's your wife or your husband, if they said no, no is no.
Right. And what I realized is that everything that we talk to teens about, the same thing applies to adults. So all of these
Mm-hmm.
red flags really do affect adults as well. And it's something that you
Mm-hmm.
ought to pay attention to, and be able to contact organizations like Cheryl Voice, like Hush No More, to actually get help, to actually be able to find out a way to leave the relationship in a healthy way, in a
Mm-hmm.
safe way. I think that's really important, that we come up with a safety plan to get you out of there. So I want to make sure, LaTasha, if there's anything else that you wanted to share with us tonight that we did not hit on.
I think we pretty much covered a lot.
We did.
If anyone has questions, or or if I'm an open book, so whatever you have, you can put it in there, and you can let me know what they said.
Okay. And then I also will share your contact information as well on social media, and also on our podcast, so that people could be able to contact you. And especially because you have a great organization, and if they want to donate to your organization, can you tell us your contact information for Cheryl's Voice?
So Cheryl's Voice has a website. It's Cheryl, CHERYL apostrophe S. Voice, VOICE, www.cherylsvoice.org. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, we also have an app. So if you are in the area, if you download the app, it has all the resources that are here in Tarrant County listed on that app. So if anyone wants a speaking engagement, I'm a national speaker at this point in my career. So I travel and do those workshops for different topics, which is teen dating violence or domestic violence or sharing my story, or also talking about how dating violence correlates with sex trafficking, which is a whole nother arena. But I do cover those as well. Also talking about having conversations about, how to date, because a lot of people are getting back into the dating arena and they're trying to date online and how to do that safely, teaching people how to background check someone. 'Cause I background check everybody. I don't play them games. So all that stuff, I talk about that. I do workshops on those things. Here in the community, one of the things that we do, and so the donations go toward, is giving out product to the community. So Amazon has partnered with us, and I have these educational giveaways. So basically, people will come and then get everything from toiletries to electronics, laptops, iPhones, whatever they need. They can get all that stuff for free, but they're going to also be educated at the same time. And so we have to cover costs for movers to come and move that stuff so we can get it all set up. And we also cover costs for the printed items that we give them with resources on domestic violence and backpacks and those types of things for kids. We do a lot of that. And so that's really where my heart is. And I don't have like sponsors yet. And I use my salary to do a lot of that stuff, but I do appreciate any type of donations that we do get. So I appreciate you using your platform to say that, because anything that we do get, that's pretty much where it goes, is for moving expenses and costs, to be able to give stuff to the community.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's important that people know what different organizations do. And where are you located? Because you talked about your.
We are in Fort Worth, Texas, in Tarrant County. That's where I'm located. But I do travel. I just last year before COVID, I was in New Orleans, and then I had one in Florida. And as soon as I got back from Charlotte, we got shut down. We got COVID had taken us over. So prior to that, I get asked to. I think I got an email from somebody in Alaska, because I work in criminal courts, and so I did a workshop in Louisiana and New Orleans for police officers and professionals and court professionals. And so one of the people from Alaska and Hawaii emailed me asking me would I come and speak and do workshops. I'm like, okay. So I travel.
Love it. I love it. I love to travel too. It's a good thing to be able to travel to provide advocacy and training.
Right.
It's an amazing feeling. So
Right.
Thank you for joining us today. This hour went by really fast.
It did. And thank you for having me. If anyone has any questions or anything, please reach out to me. And because some people I know are probably sometimes they don't feel comfortable just kind of putting it out there. And so if you have questions, you can email me anytime or send me a message on the app. The app goes straight to my email. So
I love it. I love it. Thank you so very much for joining us. We'll have to have you back because you have some really good topics. And I just love your sense of humor and the way that you explain it, and you simplify everything. So I absolutely love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I always pray that that's what I do. So.
You do. All right. So that is Miss LaTasha. I am so proud of her and just thankful that she came and joined us today. As you know, Hush No More provides a lot of resources in the community. We provide free training. You can contact us at www.hushnomore.org. Our number is 1-888-285-2161. You can find us on all the social media platforms. So make sure you reach out to us. We have some very fun events coming up for SAM, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. April 16th is spoken word. So if you are a poet, we would love for you to participate in our virtual spoken word. April 18th, it is warrior training, survivor to warrior training. And we're going to do some hand-to-hand combat training. That's what I call it because I'm prior military. But we're going to do some real good self-defense training. And that's going to be a live event where we'll be social distancing and wearing our mask. And then on April 18th, we're going to do a Hush No More documentary screening. That is all online. So get your popcorn and join us on that day. And also on the 24th of April is our Child Sexual Abuse Forum. So parents, we really need you to attend that because you need to know what's going on with our children and how you could protect your children from being abused by not the stranger, but by people that they know. And so that is the month of April. Next week, March 2nd, we have Mary Knight. She's going to come on Hush No More Champions and talk about spiritual rituals and the KKK as it relates to child sexual abuse. That is going to be a good one. I didn't even know that KKK was real big in child sexual abuse and pornography. So that's going to be a good one. March 16th, we are going to have Janae Chu. She's going to talk about forgiving my rapist. That is very hard to do. And so I'm looking forward to see how she accomplished that. So if you're having a problem with forgiveness, you want to forgive, you don't want to forgive, join us because that's going to be an interesting conversation. So thank you for joining Hush No More Champions, where we spotlight survivors, their stories, advocates, and nonprofit organizations. If you would like to be a guest on Hush No More Champions, please contact us because we would love for you to share your story because we believe that you have a right to tell it. So peace and blessings to you all, and thank you for joining us.